I stood on the front lawn staring at my bags scattered across the grass like trash. Clarissa, my own mother, stood in the doorway, her face twisted with rage. Her voice cut through the afternoon air. "You are just a leech living off us!" Those words did not hurt because she kicked me out. They hurt because she had no idea what I had done for this family for 4 years. 3 weeks later, everything exploded. But it was not my life that fell apart. Before we dive into this story, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If stories about family betrayal and unexpected karma resonate with you, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Now let me take you back to where this all started so you can understand why that one phone call from my dad changed everything. I grew up in a modest 2-story house in the suburbs of Ohio. It was the kind of neighborhood where everyone knew each other, where kids played in the streets until the sun went down, and where families pretended everything was fine even when it was not. My parents bought that house 20 years ago when I was just 6 years old. Back then, it felt like a castle. Now looking back, I can see the cracks that were always there. My father, Gerald, worked at an auto parts manufacturing plant about 30 minutes from our house. He had been there for over 2 decades doing the same job, earning the same modest paycheck. Never complaining, but never thriving either. He was a quiet man, the kind who would rather watch television than engage in difficult conversations. Conflict made him uncomfortable, so he avoided it at all costs, even when that cost was his own son. My mother, Clarissa, worked part-time at a retail store in the local mall. She was always the louder one in the family, the one who made decisions, who controlled the household with her opinions and her moods. She had a way of making everyone feel like they were never doing enough. Like no matter what you contributed, it was always short of her expectations. Money was her favorite topic of complaint. We never had enough, according to her. Bills were always piling up. Life was always unfair. Then there was my younger sister, Harper. She was 19, a sophomore in college, and the golden child of the family. Harper could do no wrong in my mother's eyes. She never had to lift a finger around the house. Her laundry was done for her, her meals were prepared, and her tuition was a constant source of stress that somehow became everyone else's problem except hers. She had learned early on that playing the victim got her what she wanted, and she played that role perfectly. And then there was me. 26 years old, a college graduate with a degree in finance working remotely for a financial technology company. I had moved back home after graduation, not because I had no other options, but because I saw my family struggling and I wanted to help. That decision would become the biggest regret of my life. But at the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. Within months of moving back, I realized the financial situation was worse than I had imagined. My parents were drowning in credit card debt. They had missed several mortgage payments, and the bank was sending warning letters. Clarissa would hide these letters in a drawer, pretending they did not exist. Gerald would just sigh and change the channel on the television. Nobody wanted to face reality. So I did what I thought any good son would do. I stepped in quietly. I opened a joint checking account with my father, telling him it would make it easier to help with bills. I became a co-signer on the mortgage refinance, which allowed them to get a lower interest rate and reduce their monthly payments. Every month, I transferred $1,200 into that account to cover most of the mortgage. I paid the electricity bill, the water bill, the internet bill. When Harper came up short for her tuition one semester, I covered $2,000 without anyone asking me to. All of this was done through automatic transfers. Quiet. Invisible. I never announced what I was doing. I never asked for recognition. I just did it because they were my family, and I believed that family took care of each other. But here's the thing about being invisible. People start to believe you contribute nothing at all. Because I worked from home, I was always around the house. My job required me to be on my computer for 8 to 10 hours a day, attending virtual meetings, analyzing data, managing client portfolios. It was demanding work, but it did not look like work to someone who measured productivity by how much you sweat. Clarissa started making comments. At first, they were small, almost playful. "Must be nice to wake up whenever you want," she would say as I poured my morning coffee at 8:30. I would explain that I had been working since 7, but she would just roll her eyes. "Sitting in front of a computer is not real work," she would respond. "Some of us actually have to be on our feet all day." I tried not to let it bother me. I reminded myself that she did not understand remote work, that she came from a generation where work meant leaving the house and clocking in. But the comments kept coming and they kept getting sharper. Gerald never said anything in my defense. He would sit in his recliner, eyes fixed on whatever game was on, pretending he did not hear. I would look at him hoping for some backup, some acknowledgement that what I did mattered. He would just shrug and reach for his drink. Then Harper started joining in. One afternoon, she had friends over, and I walked through the living room to get some water from the kitchen. I heard her laugh and say, "Yeah, that is my brother, total freeloader, just lives here rent-free while my parents support him." Her friends giggled. I stood in the kitchen, glass in hand, feeling something crack inside me. I wanted to walk out there and tell them the truth. I wanted to show them the bank statements, the automatic transfers, the thousands of dollars I poured into this family every single month. But I did not, because that is not who I was. I was the quiet one, the one who helped without asking for credit, the one who believed that eventually they would see my value without me having to prove it. I was wrong. Things got worse when Clarissa lost her job. The retail store she worked at closed down, another victim of online shopping taking over. She came home that day with a box of her belongings and a chip on her shoulder the size of Ohio. Instead of looking for another job, she settled into a routine of bitterness. Everything was someone else's fault. The economy, the government, the store manager who she claimed never liked her, and, increasingly, me. Her comments became more frequent and more public. At Thanksgiving dinner that year, we had a few relatives over. Aunts, uncles, cousins I only saw once a year. Clarissa was in the kitchen, and I overheard her talking to her sister. "I do not know what we are going to do with him," she said loud enough for everyone to hear. 26 years old and still living in our basement like a teenager. Linda's son just bought his own house, put down a real down payment. What is mine doing, playing video games and pretending to work? I was sitting at the dining table not 10 feet away. Everyone heard. Nobody said anything. I stared at my plate, feeling the eyes of my relatives on me, feeling the judgment, the pity, the secondhand embarrassment. I wanted to stand up and tell them the truth, but I looked at Gerald silently, begging him to say something to defend me, to reveal that their mortgage was being paid by the so-called freeloader in the basement. He took a sip of his beer and said nothing. I spent the rest of that Thanksgiving in my room telling myself that it did not matter what they thought. I knew the truth. That should have been enough. But it was not. It was never enough. A few months later, Harper came home with a crisis. She wanted to go on a spring break trip with her sorority sisters, some beach destination that cost more than most people's monthly rent. The trip was $2,000, and she needed the money within a week. Clarissa sat at the kitchen table going through bills, her face pinched with stress. "We do not have that kind of money," she said. "You know things are tight right now." Harper's face crumpled. She looked at me, then back at Clarissa. "If he was not here eating all our food and using our electricity, maybe we would have money for things that actually matter." I was stunned. I had been standing in the doorway, and suddenly I was the target. "I can lend you the money," I offered, trying to keep my voice calm. "I have savings. It is not a problem." Clarissa laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "You? Where would you get $2,000? You do not even pay rent here. You do not contribute anything." "I have a job," I said, my voice tightening. I make good money. I have been saving." "If you have money," Clarissa shot back, "why are you still leeching off us? Why are you still here?" The argument escalated from there. Harper cried about how unfair her life was. Clarissa shouted about how hard she worked while I supposedly did nothing. Gerald sat in the living room, volume on the television turned up, pretending none of it was happening. I went to bed that night feeling like a stranger in my own home. But it was what I discovered the next week that truly broke something inside me. I was checking the joint account, making sure the automatic payments had gone through, when I noticed something strange. The balance was lower than it should have been. Much lower. I started digging through the transactions and found withdrawals I did not recognize. Large amounts transferred to an account I had never seen before. I confronted Gerald that evening when Clarissa was out. I showed him the statements, the missing money. His face went pale. His hands started shaking. And then he told me the truth. He had been gambling online. It started small, he said. A few dollars here and there. But it grew. He started losing, and then he started chasing his losses, convinced the next bet would turn everything around. He had taken out a home equity line of credit without telling Clarissa. $30,000 borrowed against the house, and almost all of it was gone. I sat there in silence trying to process what I was hearing. My father, the man who never spoke up, who never caused conflict, had been secretly gambling away our family's security. And now he was begging me to keep his secret. "Please," he said, his voice cracking. "Do not tell your mother. It will destroy her. It will destroy us. I will stop, I promise. Just help me fix this." Against my better judgment, I agreed. I told myself it was for the family. I told him we would work out a payment plan that I would help him dig out of this hole. He thanked me with tears in his eyes, promising it was over, promising he would change. I wanted to believe him. But something inside me had shifted. The foundation of trust I had built with my family was crumbling, and I could feel myself standing on unstable ground. The day everything fell apart started like any other Saturday. I was in my room working on a project that was due Monday, headphones on, deep in concentration. I did not hear the footsteps coming down the hall until my door flew open. Clarissa stood there, face red, veins visible on her neck. In her hand was a piece of paper I recognized immediately. It was a statement from the joint account, the one I shared with Gerald. "You have been stealing from us," she screamed. "I found this in your father's drawer. I saw the transfers. You have been taking our money this whole time." I pulled off my headphones, my heart pounding. "What are you talking about?" $30,000, she shouted, shaking the paper at me. $30,000 is missing from this account. You took it. You have been robbing your own family. I stood up, trying to stay calm, trying to think clearly. Those transfers are not withdrawals. They are deposits. I have been putting money into that account. I have been paying the mortgage, the bills, everything. That money you are looking at, I put it there." "Liar," she spat. "You expect me to believe that you do not have that kind of money. You sit in this room all day doing nothing." I looked past her and saw Gerald standing in the hallway. Our eyes met. This was his moment. This was when he could tell the truth, explain that the missing money was his doing, that I had been the one keeping this family afloat. I waited for him to speak. He looked at the floor and said nothing. Behind him, I saw Harper standing at her bedroom door, arms crossed, a smug smile on her face. She was enjoying this. "You are a thief and a leech," Clarissa continued, her voice rising. "You have been living off us for years, contributing nothing, and now you have been stealing from us too. I want you out. Now." "If you would just listen," I started. "Get out," she screamed. "You are just a leech living off us. Go leech somewhere else." She stormed into my room, grabbed one of my bags, and started throwing my clothes into it. When it was full, she dragged it out the front door and hurled it onto the lawn. She came back for another bag, then another. Gerald watched from the hallway. Harper watched from her door. Neither of them moved to stop her. I stood there watching my life get thrown onto the grass, and something inside me went quiet. Not broken. Quiet. I realized I had a choice. I could fight back. I could scream the truth. Expose Gerald's gambling, show them the bank records that proved I was the one keeping this household running. I could burn it all down. But looking at them, at Clarissa's rage and Gerald's cowardice, and Harper's satisfaction, I realized something. This family did not deserve my fight. They did not deserve my truth. They had already decided who I was, and nothing I said would change that. So I walked outside, picked up my bags, and loaded them into my car. Clarissa stood on the porch, still yelling, "Do not you dare come back! You are dead to this family!" I got in the car, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. That night, I slept in my car in a parking lot outside a grocery store. It was uncomfortable and cold, but I felt something I had not felt in years. Peace. No more walking on eggshells, no more being invisible, no more giving everything I had to people who saw me as nothing. The next morning, I called my best friend Marcus. I told him what happened, giving him the short version. He did not ask questions. He just said, "Come over, stay as long as you need." When I arrived at his apartment, he handed me a cold beer and said, "Their loss, man. Seriously, their loss." Over the next 3 weeks, I quietly dismantled everything I had built for my family. I called the bank and removed myself from the joint account. I canceled all the automatic payments, the mortgage, the electricity, the water, the internet. Everything I had been paying stopped. I contacted the refinancing company and informed them I was withdrawing as a co-signer. I transferred my personal savings to a new account at a different bank. I was not stealing anything. I was not doing anything illegal. I was simply stopping what I had been doing for 4 years. I found a small apartment on the other side of town, signed a lease, and started building a life that was entirely my own. And I waited, because I knew exactly what was coming. 3 weeks after Clarissa threw my bags on the lawn, my phone rang. It was Gerald. His voice was shaking, panicked in a way I had never heard before. "Son, something is wrong. The bank froze our account. They are saying we missed mortgage payments. The electricity got cut off yesterday. We do not understand what is happening. You have to help us. Please. Your mother is losing her mind. We might lose the house." I listened to him plead, his voice breaking with desperation. This man who had stood in the hallway and let me be called a thief, who had let his gambling addiction destroy the family while I quietly cleaned up his mess, who had never once defended me. I let the silence stretch out. Then I said 2 words. "Ask the Leech." I hung up and sent one final text message. "Everything I did for this family for 4 years, you let her call me a thief. You know the truth. Now live with it." Then I blocked both of their numbers and set my phone down. Through Marcus and a distant cousin who still talked to me, I learned what happened after I cut ties. The truth about Gerald's gambling came out within days. Clarissa found bank statements, credit card bills, evidence of the $30,000 home equity loan that had vanished into online betting sites. The marriage that had somehow survived decades of quiet dysfunction could not survive this. Clarissa filed for divorce within 2 months. Without my income supporting the household, everything fell apart quickly. The mortgage payments that I had been covering went unpaid. The bank sent warning letters, then foreclosure notices. Harper had to drop out of college because there was no money for tuition. The golden child who had never worked a day in her life suddenly had to get a job at a fast food restaurant just to help pay for groceries. Gerald tried to reach me through every channel he could think of. He sent emails to my work address. He showed up at Marcus's apartment once, but Marcus told him I did not live there and closed the door. He wrote letters that I threw away without reading. Clarissa sent a long letter too. Pages of words that swung wildly between apology and blame. She was sorry for what she said, but I had to understand the stress she was under. She did not know about Gerald's gambling, but I should have told her. She wanted me to come home and help fix things, but also I needed to understand that mothers say things they do not mean when they are upset. I read the letter once, then I put it in the trash where it belonged. The first few weeks after leaving were harder than I expected. I would wake up in the middle of the night replaying that moment on the lawn, questioning whether I had done the right thing. I started seeing a therapist, a patient woman named Dr. Patterson, who helped me understand patterns I had never recognized before. "You spent years being the invisible support system," she told me during one session. "You sacrificed your own needs and never asked for recognition. That is admirable in some ways, but it also enabled them to take you for granted. You were not responsible for their choices. You were only responsible for protecting your own peace." Those words stayed with me. Slowly, I started to rebuild. I got promoted at work, my salary increasing by 20%. I moved from Marcus's couch to my own one-bedroom apartment with a view of the city skyline. I decorated it exactly how I wanted, with no one to criticize my choices. I learned to cook real meals, started going to the gym, began taking care of myself in ways I never had time for before. I made new friends through a hiking group Marcus introduced me to. People who did not know my history, who liked me for who I was right now, not who my family had decided I should be. For the first time in years, I woke up in the morning without a knot in my stomach. 6 months after I left, I was sitting in a coffee shop downtown when someone walked up to my table. I looked up and saw Harper. She looked different. Thinner with dark circles under her eyes. The confidence she used to carry like armor was gone. "Can I sit down?" she asked quietly. I nodded and she took the chair across from me. "I owe you an apology," she said, staring at her hands. "I did not know. None of us knew what you were doing for the family. The mortgage, the bills, my tuition, that one semester. Mom found records after you left. We had no idea." I watched her as she spoke, this little sister who had called me a freeloader in front of her friends, who had smiled while our mother threw my belongings onto the lawn. "I am not asking you to forgive me," she continued. "I just needed you to know that I am sorry, and that I understand now. I understand why you left and why you are not coming back." I took a sip of my coffee, choosing my words carefully. "I appreciate you saying that, Harper. I hope you learn to see people for who they really are, not who you assume they are. And I hope you learn that how you treat someone when you think they have nothing matters more than how you treat them when you find out they had everything." She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. I reached for my wallet, paid for both our drinks, and stood up. "Take care of yourself," I said. That was the last conversation I had with anyone in my family. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did, if I feel guilty about walking away, about letting them face the consequences of their choices. The honest answer is no. I gave that family 4 years of my life, thousands of dollars, and countless moments of swallowing my pride. I asked for nothing in return except to be seen. And when the moment came to choose between the truth and their own assumptions, they chose to believe I was worthless. I do not hate them. Hate takes too much energy, and I spent too many years pouring energy into people who could not be bothered to see me. What I feel now is something quieter, something that took months of therapy and reflection to find. I feel free. The lesson I carry with me is simple but hard-earned. Love should not cost you your dignity. Family is not an excuse for cruelty. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is not fight back, but walk away and let people face the consequences of losing someone they never appreciated. If you made it to the end of this story, I have a question for you. Have you ever given everything to someone who refused to see your worth? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories remind me that none of us are alone in these struggles. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you do not miss more stories like this one. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message today, share this video with them. Sometimes knowing that others have walked the same path makes our own journey a little easier. Thank you for spending this time with me. Whatever situation you are facing right now, I hope you find the courage to choose yourself, to set boundaries that protect your peace, and to walk away from anyone who cannot see your value. You deserve people who appreciate you without needing proof. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.